Static or dynamic, that's one of those things, and that's the contextual piece that we need to really kind of understand what we're doing with Power BI and what it brings to the table. Now, static is what's traditional. So we've had these PowerPoints that we get coming out and it's there, or we have like printed out a PDF, or we even print out, as I say. But that's not how we best consume Power BI, is it? And that's the bit that we need to understand. And that affects everything that we're going to do in Power BI. And it should really be shaping how we structure and lay out our content. It's not about just being right for this view. It's going to be what's going to be right tomorrow, next month, and next year as well. Hi, my name's Ross Watston, the creator and founder of Geordie Consulting and Geordie Intelligence, the YouTube channel you're watching right now. What we've got here is the PDF that we built based on what's gone on in Jesmond Dean Parkrun in 2024. And this is kind of typical of what you will see in a traditional business, isn't it? So we've got kind of a nice title page, it looks very nice, summary information, got some narrative there, pretty pictures, narrative, charts to explain stuff. This is great, this is what we want. But what does it mean is kind of the core piece, isn't it? There's a big chunk of what's kind of missing, and there's lots of content there. There's tons of information, and I'll put a link down below in the description. You can download it and have a look yourself. The key thing with this is really the bit that's, I think, really so important that we understand what's going on with this, is that everything in a PDF like this is static. So I can't interact with the data. What the data is what the data is. There's no interactivity. But if I go to Power BI here and I say, well, I'm going to go and have a look at those same reports. So we come through it here and we look at Newcastle Parkruns. And we went to Jesmond Dean, for example, but straight away, first off, well, we've got more than just Jesmond Dean, haven't we? We can see other stuff, but we can say, well, let's look at Jesmond Dean today, and we can click on it and we get interactivity. We can choose to say, well, I just want to see 2024. I can say, well, show me everything up to 2024 for Jesmond Dean. So we've got that whole period up to 2024. And it's interactive. I'm not just consuming it blind. I've got a constant way of seeing everything that's happened across the piece for it. And that's something which is very different to really that PDF mindset. And what it means as well is when we build content, we have to be aware, how are we going to change this? Or sorry, not how are we going to change it. How are our customers going to interact with the data? And this is a tough one. This is one that, still really difficult for this. And I'm still not fully convinced we've got the right one or the right structure and layout for it. Part of this for the Newcastle Parkrun stuff is the reality of what it is, which is this needs to be a report that's accessible on the public side, rather than it being a normal app that we would build that was internal and that could interact multiple reports, interacting with multiple dashboards and things like that to actually build a proper hierarchy. So we probably go down some different routes and do different things to interact with data and actually drive you to the right content that you wanted. But we can't do that with the way this is. That's not necessarily an issue, but it's things like we've got this people down in the bottom left here, which is hidden by this. Let's see if we can zoom in a bit. Yeah. So there's here, whereas we probably in reality would put it as a different page. So in the app, it would be on the left menu and you'd hit there and go to the people side. For this, obviously it's different. But what that does then is it takes you to something which is a bit, again, different, because it needs to be something that's there. We've got this participant search in here, which is just clunky, doesn't work and isn't right. But again, it's a decision based on what we've got. We will need to revisit lots of these. And these are things where I'm having to compromise what we would normally do because it needs to work in this setting. Doesn't make it wrong, doesn't cause problems. It's just there's headache just with this. Normal business, we would do something different. Okay, but the interactivity is the point. So if we're looking here and just looking at finish profiling, for example, and this was one of the things I was talking about with somebody earlier, we've got the idea, we can say, well, Denton Dean has one finish profile, Jesmond Dean has a different finish profile, Lees is Park. So I think one of the things that we need to do with this is actually do a finish profile where it's like a percentage, so effectively be like a histogram where you've got where your total 100% and you actually then work through what percentage people finish at what finish minute at what minute, and you can then choose to break that down, in this case by age group. We might want to go by gender, we might want to go other ways. For example, here we've got this by age group. If we go to here and we scroll right back up, see we've got this by gender, and gender was one I've seen it in lots of the power and lots of the charts that are produced by parkrun statisticians. And I think it's one that in this day and age, difficult, I don't know. But yeah, we can take your pick, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So certainly we can build all those up. But what I thought it would be nice to be able to see is what's the profile for each event so we can then compare them. And especially because, obviously we're looking at expanding this and potentially we might be, we've already got Newcastle, we've got Sunderland. Should we be expanding further and making more content available? I don't know. So how would we go about building a chart that would allow us to build that profile? So what's the best way to do it? Okay, we've switched over into Power BI Desktop so we can actually start writing some measures here. Right, now all I've done is I've copied this table or this chart to a new page. Okay, so here's on new page. We'll see we've got this. So we can already, can't we? We can say let's go to title, for each tracked event. Let's put that on small multiples, and you can kind of see the scale of the problem that we've got. So we've got Town Moor, which has been going on for a lot longer, has had lots more finishes, obviously. So that's dwarfing everything. So what we really want is some way of doing percentages. So what's the best thing we can do for it? So what we thought we would do is kind of do this way so we can kind of build a bit like a histogram kind of view of it. So let's start with this. We're going to create a new measure. Okay, I'm going to call this profile of event. Yeah, because what I was thinking is kind of more difficult events, people should be slower, shouldn't they? Whereas quicker, slower, and you can then work out, can't you, yourself, what's this? Potentially, in theory, we could go down the route of taking it further and then analyze that again. So what we're going to need is, let's start with the simple piece, okay? So we're going to put in a variable, okay? Let me zoom in a bit on this so it's easier for you to see. There we go. So we're going to start with a variable. I always do underscores for variables, just makes it easier when we've got to pick those again. So this is going to be our nominator, because we're going to be dividing this. What we want is to work out what percentage of the total is this. So it's going to be the nominator. So what we're actually going to go is say, well, let's get a finish minute. What percentage of people finish in that minute of time? And then we can put those together and that'll stack up to give us a nice profile for it. Okay, so we've got the nominator. So that's going to be equal to, I'll just put that in, and that'll be the registered finishers. Okay, simple for that one. VAR. And what we're going to do here is, what we need is to actually say, well, which event are we talking about? Because kind of that's going to be really important. We're going to say URL, and that's going to equal the selected event, or the selected value, of the URL. So tracked events URL. So there should only be one of those, what we want, because we want a single profile. So there, if it's more than one, it'll be blank, which cause all sorts of problems. So this is a good way to go about it. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to go VAR, and now we need to get the denominator, don't we? So we're going to go denom. Okay, and this is going to be a calculate. So we're going to calculate our registered finishers. And what we then need to do is let's get all participants. Yeah, all participation. So we want all of it. But all is going to be all events as well, which is why we need to have then a filter, don't we? So we're going to say, but where participation URL equals or URL. close brackets. Okay, so now we've got those three. So we've pretty much built it. So what we're going to do now, again, best practice, we're going to create this, go this result equals divide norm by denorm. I'm just going to say, let's call it blank if there's anything else. Comes over there, yeah. And then we will return underscore result. Okay. Really simple. How does that work for us then? What I'm going to do, one last thing, is at the top, I'm just going to say we want this to be percentage. By default, it's going to give it 2 decimal places. We'll go down to 1. I think, just because as we get further down the tail of it, this is where you might find that you get some oddities if we go much further. You might even find that 0 is probably a better way to go, but this is where we can change it if we need to. So we've got that now. So let's go. So if we go to profile of event, and we will drag this through into here. Oh, change it. It's not changing, is it? Profile of event. There we go. How does that look? So straight away, we can see we've got something that's different now. We can actually start to see what's happening across the profile of each event. And what we could do is we could swap these around, couldn't we? So we could put age group down in small multiples and title up in the legend. And suddenly we can actually see, so juniors versus veterans versus this, we've got a breakdown of the field. We can remove the age group from here and we can then start to see what's happening. What I would probably do, as I say, is put it that way. And it's really clear, isn't it? We've got Townmore is a quicker course than anyone else, which is no big surprises. I think the surprise would be that there seems to be some transition here in Gent and Dean. Interesting, there's a group here is lower. So you've potentially got like an elite group and a normal group, because it's affected your flow, hasn't it? You know, if you think you'd be expecting more of like a bell curve for all of them, it's interesting. But we've got this now, haven't we, across here? We can see everything that's going on. And we can track and see flows and processes across the whole thing. So we can start, this is it, isn't it? You'd be able to use this any way across that you wanted to put in place and understand the profile of the event based on the finishes. So what I hope you're understanding is that the flow changes, okay? And this is one of those things that it's really difficult to express and to really get people to understand about Power BI and really the way modern analytics platforms work, not just Power BI. You know, Tableau is very similar. The expectation would be very similar with Click, with Looker, everything like that. That rather than it just being static consumption of here is a structured thing that you can look at, that's it. The expectation is that the content needs to be interactive. So we've looked in this series already, haven't we, actually using PowerPoint and how we can connect PowerPoint to Power BI and view it interactively as opposed to just using it as a snapshot, which, yes, we can set it in snapshot view and it's probably better for most boardroom contexts. But at times when you go, oh, we need to go to that next level, you can switch into a live view and then start to analyze. That's a game changer for a business. You know, think how many times you do an AOB item. Actually, what's that number drilled down into? Why was that there? What? And click, there's the answer, sir, madam. That saved us lots of time, and we're not looking, which is the weirdest thing when you actually really understand this, that an AOB item takes something that is potentially already at least one reporting cycle out of date, given that it might be something that happened at the start of the month. It's now the middle of next month, and we're looking at it and going, well, what happened then? And we're going to report on that in an AOB item the next month, and potentially if there's further questions, that'll the month after. You know, can you think, instead of doing that, you go, well, click, drill in. Was there an impact? Can we follow that through? Being able to quickly build DAX measures as well, like we've just done here, you can build these in secondary reports. So if your manager comes and says, we want to build this profile, you can do it. In terms of this profile measure was one I discussed with somebody over the weekend, and it was like, right, we need to do it. It took 20 minutes, if that, to build and to do this. Didn't even take 20 minutes. Who am I kidding? You can do these things quickly, easily, and build them. And these are all pattern based as well. So once you've done one, it's easy enough to do another. Like we know what we need to do, bish, bash, bosh, there we go. It makes it really quick and really easy to move everything further forward with your business. So think about that. Right? The interactivity, it adds a huge layer of complexity to what you do, but you need to shift that mindset from just being static to my audience needs to interact with the data. I'm not having to spoon feed and explain everything because the expectation is you will explore and find. And once you say explore and find, they will find things that will be different to your explanation. So you kind of need to do that, think through that whole recursive piece. How are people going to feed back to you? Like these finished profiles, it was a case saying, well, great, we've got this profile, but what does it look like for a different event? How do we, is there something there that we could build a nice shape to see R versus R versus R? Yeah. If you like what you've seen, and you think we need some help to really start to baseline and understand where we are today with our data and where we want to get to, what our next steps are going to be to bring in the likes of AI to really leverage and maximize our data potential, get in contact with Geordie Consulting. They are your best bet. They will be your data ally. For now though, stay safe, take care, ta-da.